The search for answers today surrounding that charred commuter train north of New York City. NTSB investigators on the scene now, where 6 people were killed after that train slammed into an SUV and then went up in flames. Hello everyone, I'm Michelle Franzen in New York. Those killed in that accident burned so badly they are still being identified. These images now just coming into us from the NTSB as investigators examine that scene, looking for potential evidence and finding out what happened when that train hit the SUV. ABC's Lindsay Davis has been following this story since it happened and joins us now live with more. Lindsay, what are we finding out today as the NTSB investigators are combing over that crash site?
Yeah, good afternoon to you, Michelle. Just want to kind of set the scene for you from the beginning. It's such a grim sight here because we're surrounded, first of all, by cemeteries, and you can still very distinctly smell the scent of something charred in the air. Now, the National Transportation Safety Board has taken over the investigation, and you can see a number of their workers here working to remove the train to a storage area. Right in front of the train, you can still see, you can barely make it out, I think, if you're looking at it on TV. I'm not sure you can tell, but that little whitish gray area crunched right up in front of that first car on the train, that's actually the black Jeep Cherokee, the SUV that was initially stalled on the tracks that caused this accident. And as we now know, the woman who was driving that car is among the deceased, among the 6 fatalities. The 5 others were passengers on board the train. And as we continue to take a look at the train, you can just see the aftermath, how devastating the fire was, particularly in that first car. Although a number of the officials have suggested that because it was rush hour, they're surprised actually that there were not more injuries and more fatalities. About a dozen people went to the hospital. 1 person still remains in critical condition, another in serious.
And Lindsay, we did have a good view of that, and thanks to your photographer for giving us that view. So many of the passengers and witnesses are set to still be interviewed. Such a crucial part of this investigation that could take up to a year. What are you hearing about that?
You know, witnesses, and I missed the last part of what you're saying, but I think you want to know what people are saying, that witnesses, what they say that they observed and heard. And one gentleman who our local affiliates talked to said that he was positioned right behind the Jeep Cherokee when it got to the crossing area where it would go over, the cars would pass over the railroad tracks. And he says that the driver stopped because the crossing gates came down on her vehicle, that she then got out of her car, looked at the back of her car, then got back in. He says at that point he had reversed to give her enough room to back up, but for some reason she drove forward. And as Governor Cuomo described it, he said it's an inexplicable decision. He's not really sure that we'll ever know why she ended up driving forward. And then as soon as she drove forward, that is when the train hit her. And it's typically that train that's leaving from Grand Central, it was a 5:44 departure. It was about 20 miles north, about 45 minutes after it had left Grand Central. Typically in that particular crossing area, it's going as fast as 60 miles per hour.
We're also hearing some dramatic accounts from passengers who were able to make it off that train. You were able to speak to one man who was there on the train watching a movie when it all happened, and tell us what he told you.
Yeah, Chris Gross, he normally would take the 5:30 departure train. He said he had to run an errand for a friend. He had picked up some sneakers because he's a coach, and he was on his laptop. And he says those are the 2 things that he lost, his laptop and his shoes. But of course he's not worried about that because he didn't lose his life. But take a look at, listen to what he had to say. The moment after impact, just kind of set the scene for me. Are people yelling and crying?
The guy sitting in the 5-seater was screaming. It was either I broke my leg or, you know, the guy who lost his leg was screaming, obviously higher. People were yelling for a fire extinguisher to call 911. A lot of yelling, a lot of screaming, you know, crying. It's something I'm not going to forget and probably going to haunt me for a while.
Yeah, and just so heart-wrenching as we're starting to hear some of the stories. They're not confirmed just yet as far as releasing names of the victims, but what we're hearing, really some heart-wrenching details about the people who passed away.
And Lindsay, again, as we look behind you and you told us what they're getting ready to do with those cars, What will they be doing during that investigation when they take those train cars and they relocate them and reconstruct what happened?
Right. So the gentleman who's heading up the investigation with the NTSB said that the main thing they want to first and foremost do is get to perishable things. And by perishable, they even mean not so much necessarily debris, but even talking to people, ideas and thoughts and things that people were feeling at the moment and witnessed at the moment of impact and thereafter in the aftermath. So they're going to remove the cars here and take it to a storage area, and they're hoping that within the next 24 to 48 hours they'll be able to talk to the conductor and engineer, who both were injured but survived.
ABC's Lindsay Davis on the scene in Valhalla, New York. Thank you very much for that report. And you can keep up with this story in real time by downloading the ABC News app and starring this story for exclusive updates on the go. I'm Michelle Franzen in New York.